Hi, I'm Ashley. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet your own logo scarf. So I chose Nebraska Cornhuskers because they're my favorite team, so I went with the red, black, and white. And I designed this in logo to crochet on either end. So I'm going to show you how to design your own logo and then how to crochet the scarf. So in general, what you're going to need to crochet this scarf is you're going to need a skein of your primary color of yarn. So I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. This skein is 355 yards. I probably used about 300 yards of my primary color. And then you'll need your secondary colors as well. And I used maybe about a quarter of a skein, maybe less of each of these secondary colors. So not a lot. If you have something already in your stash that's the same brand and weight, you can do that. You do want to choose something that's the same brand and weight though. That way your size is uniform throughout. The other materials that you'll need is a size I 5.5 millimeter crochet hook, a yarn needle or darning needle if you like to weave in your ends with the needle instead of the crochet hook, and scissors. You'll also need some graph paper or an Excel spreadsheet grid to design and draw out your pattern. So let's get started with how to actually do it. First, let's talk about how to actually develop the pattern for this scarf. So I recommend using graph paper. I kind of drew out, okay, this is the scarf. I want it to have an N on each side for my Nebraska, and then I was thinking the stripes. So I kind of drew out generally what I was thinking. If you're making your own pattern, you grab some graph paper, use like an Excel spreadsheet and do grids, and then you want to draw out your logo. So for me, that was an N for Nebraska, and you just follow what the picture shows basically and get it as close to the shape as you can. And then each box in my grid is going to just be a single crochet. So let me show you now how to crochet based on our pattern, right? So we just drew out the picture. Now we're going to actually crochet it. So I'm going to take my first color here, which I decided to do stripes, including a stripe through the N. Now you can do whatever you want with the colors. You can do all one color and then just have the logo a different color, or stripes, whatever you want. So I'm going to start with the red here, and I'm going to single crochet across, which means I need to start with a foundation chain. And so I have 16 single crochets across. So I'm going to start with 17, and then I'm going to turn and I'm going to work in the second chain from my hook and just do a single crochet in each chain across to get to 16 single crochets. So there's 16 single crochets. Now I'm going to turn and I'm going to single crochet in the first hook. I never do a turning chain when I'm doing single crochets. I just single crochet in that first stitch, and then single crochet in each stitch across to get 2 rows of my red. So this is my first red stripe. Now when I get to my final stitch of the row, I am going to change colors here because I did 2 rows of red. Now I'm changing colors to go to white. So I'm going to do the first part of my single crochet, which is insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now instead of finishing my single crochet, I'm going to change here to my other color. And this helps your color changes look a little bit cleaner. And then you're going to turn and just start your next row, which is just all single crochet in white. So now I'm going to work over my tails so that I don't have to weave them in later. So after I turn, I just pull both of the loose strands of yarn across behind, and then I'm working over them. So just put them right next to your stitch. Work through your stitch like normal, but then your yarn is going over those 2 strands, and that will just hide your tails in there so you don't have to go in and weave them in later. After you work over your tail, you can cut your yarn from the first color, and I just kind of pull it tight and cut it there usually, so that I don't have to weave in anything later. The only reason I cut this longer is because I'm actually going to reuse this yarn later, so I'm going to frog it and reuse it. So now I'm turning and doing my next row of single crochet in my white. So I have my 2 rows of red, my 2 rows of white. Now is where we're gonna start our logo. I'm working from the bottom right to the left, and then when I turn, I'm working the opposite direction, and then here, and then here. So my first row, since it's an odd row, right? It's the 5th row, I'm gonna be working from right to left. And so I'm gonna do, just follow my grid. So I have 3 single crochets first. And then I'm going to change to red for my in. So work my 3 single crochets. And again, I'm not pulling through for that last single crochet. I'm changing colors first. And I'm going to work over my yarns again. Now I have 3 single crochets of my red, of my opposite color. So just working over these tails, I'm gonna do 3, and again, not finishing that last one. And then what I do is I drop my red and I pick up my white and finish that single crochet, okay? And then I have 3 single crochets in white. And so I'm gonna carry my working yarn, the red, through this pattern now, so that I'm not constantly cutting and weaving in ends and all of that. So I'm just continuing to work over that red yarn. And then after I do 3, I'm gonna drop my white, pick up my red again, and finish that single crochet. And then I have 4 red stitches. So again, working over my yarns, I'm just gonna do 4 single crochets, not finishing the last one. Of course, I finished it. Habit. Okay. And then drop the red, pick up the white, finish it. And then I just end with 3 single crochets in white. So there is the first row of my logo. Now I'm going to turn and I'll be working from left to right for the next row. So again, I'm going to turn and I'm going to work over my yarn. I'm just carrying this red working yarn with me the whole time, and I'm going to do 3 single crochets in white, and not finishing that last one, switch to the red. Now drop the white, pick up the red, and I'm doing 4 single crochets of red. Not finishing that last one, switch to white, 3 single crochets of white. And so I'm just constantly referring to my pattern, looking at how many stitches of each color I'm doing. So now I'm switching back to red, doing 3 single crochets. Switch back to white, 3 single crochets in white. And you can see how this is starting to develop our pattern. So this is the wrong side, so my in is going to be backwards. Now when I turn, it'll be back to the right side, and we're going to be working from right to left again. So we just finished this row, so now we're going to start with 4 single crochets. And so that's starting our angle here a little bit, and then this one's getting narrow and going up. So we just keep following the same pattern. Now when you get to, if you choose to do a black row in between, you just change colors at the end of the row from white to black, just like we changed from red to white here. And other than that, it doesn't change anything. You're still carrying the red yarn the whole way through. You're just changing to black and then changing back to white when you get back to the white row. But you don't have to do that stripe either if you don't want to. Okay, so then you just continue to follow that after you finish with the end of your in, you can cut your red yarn and just work the whole pattern like we did these first couple rows. So I'll pick up and show you how it changes for the end of the scarf. So now to pick up where we start the opposite end of our scarf. So I have my beginning logo, and then I've just crocheted, repeating my red and black stripes, red, black, and white stripes, I guess, all the way until it's the desired length. And now I'm at my final red stripe before I start my in. So let me just put my hook back in here. So I'm switching to white here. So again, not finishing that final single crochet, pull up a loop of the opposite color. And here I'm just gonna single crochet 16 across in white, because you can see there's white bordering my in. So again, working over the ends of my yarn here. Now I'm going to turn, and when you're working the opposite end of this scarf, if you want your in to be right side up on both sides, you're actually going to have to work your same pattern upside down. So just, I highly recommend just turn your pattern over, and then now instead of working from bottom right, you know, to left, we're going to do the same thing. We're still going to work from bottom right to left, but now it's flipped over. So I just finished this first row of white. Now I've got to do a second row of white before I start my logo. Okay. So now I turn again, and now I'm starting where I am going to be changing colors for my in. So again, I'm starting here at the bottom right, bottom, because I flipped it over, and I have 3 single crochets in my primary color. And then I'm going to switch to the color of my logo, which for me is red, and working over those tails, well, working over the red tail and the working white yarn, I'm going to do 3 single crochets in red. Once I get there, I'm going to switch to the white, and now I'm going to work over my red working yarn, and I'm still working over that tail to weave it in, and I'm going to do 3 single crochets in white. Switch colors, and 4 red. Switch colors, and then ending with 3 white. So as long as you counted right, this should come out fine. So there's our first row. Now we're going to turn, and we're working from left to right. So still working over the red working yarn while I turn here. Do 3 single crochets in white, 4 in red. Now I'm at 2 in white and 4 in red. 3 in white. Now turn and just work back the other direction. And we just continue to follow this pattern. When you're only working 1 single crochet, you're just switching halfway through that one, and then again switching halfway through that one. It might feel weird the first time you do that, but I promise it'll work. So now I just finished this row that's right before the black. So I'm going to switch to black and kind of show you how I do that. So switch to black, and now I'm going to turn, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just starting with single crochets, and I'm working over all of these other yarns. And then I'm still just going to switch to red for my in, and I'm going to cut the white after I get it to a length where I feel like it's secure and woven in well. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and cut the white. And just this little bit of black tail that's left over. And then now I'm just going to continue my pattern using the black and red and untangle this white. And then again, now that I've gotten to the end of that stripe of black, I'm just going to switch back to white Now, I did this just because I feel like it adds something extra, but you don't have to by any means have this extra stripe of color in there. I just thought it looked cool. So now I've finished my logo and I'm just working my row of straight white single crochets. I am still working over that red yarn a little bit just to weave in the end, and then I'll cut it. I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. And now I just have to finish off my one more row of white and then my last red stripe. So now that I'm done, the only end I have left to weave in is my finishing tail. So when I fastened off, cut, and then I just have to weave in this one end. Okay, here is my finished Nebraska logo scarf, and I think that it turned out really good, and I'm very happy with it. All right, so here is my completed scarf. I probably should have chosen a different shirt. The pink clashes a little bit, and it's kind of weird to have a bulky scarf with tank top. But anyway, here is my completed scarf. If you enjoyed this tutorial and feel like it was helpful, I highly recommend checking out some of the other videos in my crochet playlist. I have just a couple of patterns, some tutorials, some general information. So check that out here if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.